Today is my day to share a Goodtree moment. I kind of did something a little bit different with this Goodtree moment. I created a PowerPoint presentation. It's a format called Pecha Kucha, if you guys know what that is. PJ basically told me that I have 7 minutes to share. And this format, what it is, it's actually 20 slides, 20 consecutive slides, timed at 20 seconds a slide, and it just kind of like flips on its own. So it's exactly 6 minutes and 40 seconds, so it'll be over pretty quick. So if there's like some weird awkward transition in the slides where I don't get the timing right, you'll know why. So you could, so October 21st, 2019, Canada elected another Liberal government. As the polling results started to flood in that night, it didn't take very long. CBC projects a Liberal minority government. It didn't even matter about the results west of Toronto. It was decided before it began. I hung my head and stared at my barely touched pint of Alberta craft beer in a dusty corner at Joyce's. I turned to my friend, Deacon Jace, who was also having a beer, by the way, though I don't think it was the Alberta craft kind. And I muttered, well, I guess things aren't going to get any better for us for a little while. Now, believe it or not, this isn't a talk about politics, though I am the political guy at church, so what do you expect for me not to have a little politics sprinkled into my story? This is a story about me, the struggles I've been going through, the unfounded hopes that I put in the institutions of man, only to be let down. I don't know how you guys felt during that election period. Seems like it was such a long time ago. I was really frustrated. We in Alberta have been through a lot of pain lately. Many of us are hoping for a change in government that would focus on getting our economy back on its feet and maybe even get a few pipelines built. That might be just me being delusional. Now, I'm an environmentalist at heart, and I understand that burning fossil fuels leads to rising global temperatures. But why is it that when I hear politicians talk about climate change, I translate that to must shut down Alberta's oil and gas industry? It causes me a lot of anxiety. It was 10 years ago when my partners and I first brought the idea up of starting a new company. It was an exciting prospect. I scrounged up every penny I had from working up north to invest in this new venture. I was single at the time, living on my own. I figured, if this thing flops, I'll just move home to mom and dad. Nothing to lose. I was open to risk. The first 5 years were awesome. The economy was humming, business was good. Though I was thankful for God for blessing me with this success, I was prideful in thinking that I had built this with my own ability. Sure, I went to church every week, but my prayers weren't centered around forgiveness of sin or salvation or world peace. It was more like, God, please help me find a girl. And then the end of 2014, we all know what happened here in this province. Now, as Calgarians working in the oil industry, we all rolled our eyes and said to each other, here we go again. But as the years passed, things weren't improving and no sign ahead of things to improve. The struggle started to get closer to home. I was forced to let go of over half the employees of my company. Everything I worked so hard to build was dismantling in front of me. The pain at looking at the red on the financials, wondering where else do we cut. The struggle of having to be a leader, motivating the remainder of my team, faking the pessimism that was creeping up in my own head. I know a lot of people and a lot of families within this congregation have struggled as well. From layoffs to overwork for less pay, not being able to find a job, the going has been tough for a lot of us. I pray constantly for the health of my business, for the economy to turn around, and that we just get the right political leaders in place to improve our situation. Eugene Peterson states that this type of prayer is actually an act of idolatry. By praying in this way, he quotes, "This reduces God to what he can be used for my purposes, however noble and useful. We have this tendency to use God to further our own purpose instead of following God in his purpose." Now, things weren't all that bad. Within the last 5 years, I met the love of my life. I guess those prayers work, so single people, keep praying. We bought our first house together. We don't have kids yet, but they'll come eventually, so please stop asking. I've developed lasting friendships within this loving and supportive community. But even through all these positives, it's hard not to focus on the continuing struggles. My business is still fighting for survival. It feels like we're just trying to keep our heads above the water. I'm working harder than I've ever worked before for less pay and zero profit. Sometimes I wonder why I keep going. I put a lot of hope in how this election would go. The stakes are high for me. I thought that if just the right party could win, our economy can get back to how it used to be, and all of my problems would go away. I'm willing to bet that there are other people in this room that may have felt the same way that I did. Leading up to the election, I poured hours and hours every day just absorbed into watching and reading the news. I intently watched all the debates in both English and French. I listened to podcasts, watched the power panels, I read articles all across the country, trying to gauge how other people in other provinces would vote. My mood for that day would swing with the polls up and down. And then the result, where did that leave me? Depressed and hopeless. After the dust settled, I reflected on this time. Those hours that I spent chasing after hope in our political leaders, in the end, it's still faith in humans, and humans let us down. What if I were to have spent those hours more productively chasing after God? PJ had us write on a puzzle piece our worldly crush and put it in the offering box. I wrote financial security. Not because I'm going broke or anything, but because of this constant knot in my stomach that I carry. This perception that if things don't improve soon, I could lose it all. My comfort, my status, my stability. And through this experience, I've come to realize how I let my identity be so defined by this world. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God. Like everything Jesus says, how truly applicable that is to our materialistic society in North America. So the question I ask myself is this: what do I have to lose in order for God to find me again? It's a scary thought. When I had nothing, I was able to take risks, start a business, chase opportunity. But now that I've accumulated all of these things, all I can think about is the threat of losing them. What are you scared to lose? What hopes do you put in? Maybe it's time we learn how to let things go, both individually and collectively. Letting go does not mean giving up. Letting go means giving it up to God, because it is only through Him, and not our man-made institutions, but only through Him can we find everlasting security.